The sexiest man alive. You know, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, ready to bring it on live, baby, as we love to do at least once a month. We're going to see how things can shake up after this. I always like to think of what new things can I get to the patrons? How can I inspire you? You know, how can I entice you to interact with the show more and whatever else? Anyway, always thinking about that. But yes, it is our January 2019 live Q&A hangout, the very, very first live Q&A hangout of the year. In 2019, are things taking place? So do we have plans? Of course, if you want to, you can join in on the show. You can do audio, video, whatever you want, or you can just ask questions in the YouTube live chat, which is always a lot of fun. I'm happy to just read off of that. I do it often. And so get them in how you want. But we do have some preloaded questions, at least a couple of them. And someone had asked me, this isn't so much of it is a question, but like this won't take long to go over. But someone asked me, hey, show me some. I think at one point someone asked, show us the weirdest thing in the BDSM studios. And I went through a mini tour on that live Hangout Q&A. And I actually had someone ask me, is there anything new? You got anything else weird in here? And yeah, sure. And then I have another question that I'm going to get to here in a second. That's a little bit longer. But again, feel free to get your questions in the YouTube live chat. This is kind of new, and you can see my hands on it if you're watching the video. But I'll sort of put it up to the camera, even though the camera's a little low resolution right now. But anybody that kind of knows me or is really into all things cyber would recognize that this is a couple of light cycles from the movie Tron Legacy. You have Rinsler there, who we actually know as Tron. Whoa, spoiler alert. And of course, the son of Kevin Flynn, Sam Flynn, right there. And these are Lego. This is one of those amazing things where like Lego would take submissions. I forget what they call it. It's like Lego Imagination or something like that. But they would take submissions for play sets that you would like to actually see officially come out. And this is one of those play sets that was just like, it was just like one of the Lego Imaginations thing that a couple guys came up with. I want to say they were out of Britain or something. And then Lego actually ended up releasing the set. And it was so rare to find anything for Tron anyway. I mean, Tron anything is tough to get your hands on, right? So when I saw that, I said, oh, baby, I must have these, and next to probably like either the Voltron, which they did come out with the Voltron, the Lego Voltron, which is amazing because the lions actually attach and detach, and maybe Darth Vader's castle from Rogue One, probably the coolest, well, not counting like the classic monorail set from back in the 80s with the Lego space set. Probably the coolest thing that Lego singular set that Lego has ever done. Boy, at some point I would love to do a little special about Lego because I am such a fan of Legos. I didn't stop quote unquote playing with Legos. Of course, arguably I was putting this set together recently, the Tron Legacy set here. So you could say I'm still playing with Legos, but I didn't like seriously stop playing with Legos probably right up until I got in the military. Like I can remember up to like age 20, 21, I was still playing with the Mission to Mars set at the time, which was the latest space set. My favorite set was Ice Planet. In fact, I think if you go to like my LinkedIn page, the banner image at the top is actually characters from the Ice Planet Lego space set. I just love that. And Blacktron, M-Tron was the magnetic toys. Blacktron had that really cool, obviously black and like the neon green, whatever, translucent parts. That was so cool. Man, I can't tell you how much. Letting kids play with Legos. Let me put it this way to you. Letting kids play with Legos, giving kids the tools to really be creative and like have it be something that exists in the world, not just digitally. Oh, I hope that never becomes a lost art. Legos need to exist forever. Giving your kids like a set of Legos and as soon as they're able to read, letting them read the original Sherlock Holmes canon, you're probably going to make a genius if you're going to steward, should I say, a genius if that's what you provide them with going on. So Anyway, yeah, yeah. Some people in the YouTube chat said, or let's see, we got. I wish I still had mine, and then there's another one. I'm just on a long break. Yeah, we're all kind of on a long break of playing with Legos, right? They're great. I mean, and the only thing is today, and I think maybe I've talked about this before. I have another question I'm going to get to. We're not just going to talk about Legos this whole hour, okay? And of course, feel free to ask your questions. Um, but the only thing is that now, including like with these Lego Imagination set and everything, and I kind of understand why they have to do it with those, but you used to have to be really creative in making the standardized Lego pieces that existed, either the 2x1 blocks or whatever, to make it look like something from your favorite franchise, like trying to build the Enterprise or build something from Star Wars. Now, I mean, there are Star Wars Lego sets, of course, and there's kind of Star Trek Lego sets, maybe not exactly Lego, it might be like Mega Blocks or something. But now they make custom pieces for all that to make it work. Where you used to have to be a lot more creative because you'd have to figure out, okay, how do I make the saucer dish? When we have no rounded parts, how do we do this? Back when they didn't make so many custom parts. So I'm a little annoyed at all the custom parts so much now, and it doesn't feel as special. Like I remember what a big deal it was with the castle sets. When they had like the Haunted Fortress, and they came out with a glow in the dark figure that was a ghost, and that was a huge deal. One piece, it was just this huge fucking deal. And everybody wanted that Haunted Fortress set just because they wanted that glow in the dark fucking Lego piece, right? They wanted that ghost. Um, it's just a shame that like that doesn't seem to be so special anymore. That used to be a really, really big deal. Of course, maybe now these imagination sets where, it's where somebody independent of Lego comes up with it, and then Lego says, oh yeah, we love that idea. I think you get to vote on them and everything too. Maybe that's like the modern incarnation of that. But regardless, Lego's just a goddamn wonderful thing. And I mean, a truly, truly wonderful thing. Let's see. Yeah, if I were to, this is from the YouTube chat. Yeah, if I were to buy Legos again, I would want to get old sets from the 80s. I had that Haunted Fortress 2. Hell yeah. Actually, that's my co-host, Robin Freebeard, mentioning that. And what a surprise that he and I were in the same shit. Anyway. So, okay, I do have another question to get into, and we'll start on that. But feel free, of course, to get in your questions as well in the YouTube live chat or however you like to. Let's see here. Okay, Rabbi. Whoa. All right, first off, I don't know that I deserve that kind of title. I'm going to take that as very kind. I don't know that. Rabbi. Oh boy. Okay. Let's do it. Rabbi, it feels like as late you've been taking a very anti-tech stance on the show. I'm not sure if this is accurate, but the air of the show really does feel like it has changed. Is this something purposeful, or have you been going through some serious life/attitude changes of some kind? You still have the best podcast on the planet. Thank you. Don't get me wrong, but it does feel different. Thanks for everything you do, Rabbi Sovryn. Rabbi Sovryn. Oh, hell. Okay. So I this came in earlier, and the person said they wouldn't be able to make the live Q&A. So fine, I want to make sure I get to it. I don't want to say that. Yeah. Boy, this is a tough one to answer. I was thinking about it a little bit before I started, but yeah, an anti-tech stance? No, not really anti-tech. I don't think I would make that kind of claim. Am I going through some life/attitude changes? I wouldn't say attitude changes. Life changes, yes. At some point, maybe I'll talk about those. That's definitely something that's going on. But attitude changes, nah. I mean, yeah, maybe over the past couple of years. So I don't know. It'd be helpful if I knew what kind of time frame you were talking about. I mean, there hasn't been like a dramatic change in like the past couple of weeks or something. Over the past couple of years, yeah. I mean, I think if I were to make a broad statement about it, tech's gotten out of control. I mean, it's really gotten out of control. Like, one of the easy things about doing Sovryn Tech is that tech, kind of has its tentacles in everything, right? Like, I mean, there's not a part of life now that tech doesn't touch. And really, there was a time where that wasn't so, right? Now even doing the simple act of running is just loaded with some kind of tech story, right? I mean, look, on my wrist, I'm wearing the Xiaomi Mi Band 3. Okay. Now, I'm not a guy for cardio. I don't have a problem. I think cardio is fine. It's just not, it doesn't go from, it doesn't match my goals, my personal goals. Okay. But, I think, when ladies do it or guys that are into that sort of thing with cardio, hey, rock and roll, you have a great time. Okay. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I think it's wonderful. Okay. I think, getting into that sort of thing is a very good thing. But, like people wear these things to really, to track all this stuff, but then they don't realize that, what else is it tracking about them? What is it? What is all that data that they're collecting, that quantified self through their cardio that they're collecting, or that they're putting together for their own, purposes to track their health, or, making sure they're getting their goals in each day and stuff like that. What else is that saying about them right now, as to where, 20 years ago, that didn't matter to a runner. Like, they wouldn't be collecting, they wouldn't be into this whole quantified self thing, and they wouldn't know how many steps they were doing a day. I mean, that you could if you wore a pedometer or something like that, but sure. But, they wouldn't know. But today, tech's just fucking everywhere, right? And yeah, actually, here's a great comment from Rob. Tech has taken on more anti-human changes. Yeah, that, and I think you hit it. I think you very succinctly put what I was going to say, is that a lot of tech has become honestly anti-human, right? I mean, I can say to you, as I've been saying for some time now, well over 2 years, that we're not ready as a species for the level of technology that we have today. Like, we're just not prepared to handle it. We don't know how to interact with it. And I dare say it's fucking us over and fucking us up. Okay. And leading us down a path that, is not conducive to the human condition. Okay. So, I can say that, but then at the same time, like, so much of this stuff is, again, it's not conducive to the human condition. It is kind of the tech itself is anti-human. So to say that I'm taking an anti-tech stance, no, not at all. Tech, technology, I mean, it's how we do what we do. I mean, what does technology even mean? We'd have to define that. But I think even the most advanced technologies, they need to have their place. It needs to be put in its place. And it needs to be understood, what exactly, again, what this piece of technology, whatever says about you, like I can wear this, I mentioned the Mi Band 3 here, right? And Xiaomi is not like a sponsor or anything, so I don't mean to keep mentioning them. But point being is that I got this not to do quantified self, not to track me everywhere I go, blah, blah, blah. All I wanted was something that sent the actually important notifications of the day or of the moment to me in a quiet way, where I don't have to look at a screen, where I'm not thinking, oh, I better look and see if anybody sent me this. Oh, I better look and blah, blah, blah. I wanted something so that those notifications and those messages and people getting in touch with me are out of the way of everything else I want to do in the day. So this is a technology that I generally completely, argue against using, where it's tracking everywhere you go, it's following you, it's collecting all this different data about you, blah, blah, blah. But if you can turn all of that off and only use it for the feature set that works for you and is conducive to your lifestyle and how you want to go forward, well, then dynamite, great, do that. But that's the point. Okay, is that tech needs to be put into its place. These notifications that we get inundated with every fucking, saying every day is a kindness. Every second, they need to be put in their fucking place. And putting in their place is being ignored. And so as much as you're able to do that, do so. So, I hear what you're saying, but yeah, I mean, I have been trying to lead a more analog life, because it's just, you can't even think in our very much, even just the average person with Windows 10 and their iPhone or their Android phone, and maybe like, I don't know, maybe they have a Roku or something connected to their television or something like that. I mean, you're just getting inundated with fucking options, and not like options as in freedom, just like options and notifications, and like, there's screens fucking everywhere. And, can you even have a thought to yourself that isn't interrupted? I mean, fortunately, they're not controlling your thoughts yet, but can you have a thought that's uninterrupted? How do people even fucking meditate? And it makes it worse. Like, I love a lot of this stuff. Like, I'm a big fan of virtual reality. I really am. There's like, some of the most popular apps on the Oculus, or in the Oculus ecosystem, in the Oculus App Store, are meditation apps. What? You got to go into VR to fucking meditate? If that doesn't tell you what's wrong with our world today, I don't know what does. It's so bad, you know. No, to meditate, for fuck's sake, take the headset off, put it down, you know, toss it across the room if you have to, just so that you can be in your own head for a little bit. Uh, it's bad. It's really, really bad. Okay. And so, yeah, I've been trying to lead a life where the things that I want to do don't connect to the internet, do not talk to each other in any way, shape, or form. I mean, it's so hard to believe. Like, and I feel bad because I know 10 years ago, maybe a little over 10 years ago, like I was so excited for this. You know, it's like, oh man, this is going to be great. Oh yeah, I can access my music anywhere. I can access my movies anywhere. I can do this. Well, you know, and oh, Google Docs is so fucking amazing and blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, you just go down it. And then, but down the line, and it hasn't been long that we've had a lot of these technologies either, you know. But fortunately, I think, ironically, because of mass communication, we can also learn a lot quicker just how much some of this stuff is hurting us. But yeah, I was so excited about it. But now I just, you know, there's a part of me that wants to go back. And it's not because I'm old. I'm not like old. I mean, fuck. Sure, I'm 37, but I'm like one of the youngest people I know. I mean, ridiculous amounts of energy. I don't hate all things new. That's just not true at all. I mean, it's not even remotely fucking true that I hate all things new. I like lots of new things. And there's lots of technologies that I'm still very excited about. But man, the way everything is coalesced, yeah, no, I'll pass. I want to go back to where, you know, I mean, where stuff slows down. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of articles that have been going on, especially in the past year, where people are talking about, look, we got to slow this shit down. We got to slow life down. This is getting nuts. And the thing is if you can't think for yourself, if you can't have an uninterrupted thought, okay, or one that isn't influenced, or if you can't stop for a second, I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to think of some Black Mirror episode where, you know, you couldn't get away from the advertising or something like that. You know, you in a very real way, you know, this is a strong term to use and you want to be careful when you use it, but I mean, you're being, at the very least, you're being manipulated. If you're not being mind controlled, you're being manipulated, you know, and you're letting other people, other companies, whatever, do the thinking for you. Okay. And even when you're just trying to do everything, say on your laptop or on your smartphone or whatever, you know, you're ironically, as freeing and as democratizing as creativity and content creation and so many of these other things have become because of smartphones and laptops and whatever else. Okay. And as untethered as that can kind of allow you to be, if you get used to just using those tools, you stop thinking of new ways to do things. I really think so. You know, you become limited by the feature set that, you know, the Microsoft Word gives you. Even though that's not a very limited feature set. It's ridiculous the amount of settings in Microsoft Word, right? But I'm tired of looking at screens. I mean, in the past few years, like I just at one point I finally did a check-in with myself and I was like, holy shit, my eyes are looking at screens pretty much every second that I'm not sleeping. And that's not good. You know, I know that that's not good. And that is totally, you know, getting in the way of me. That's why I started meditating years ago. But again, I think a lot of people, I think meditation, you know, really started taking off maybe a year or two ago, probably before then too. I mean, and I know like in the 70s, transcendental meditation was a huge thing. I'm not saying meditation is anything new, but I'm saying in the more popular consciousness, I think it really started to take off. But then I think, you know, the tech companies started freaking the fuck out, saying, oh shit, they're meditating. All right, we gotta find ways to get meditation to be a part of our tech stack. You know, if we got to make a meditation app in virtual reality, if we have to create virtual reality so that people will just stay on our platforms and will keep, you know, looking at what we're schlepping onto them, we got to do that. And meditation is just one example. It's a broader point though. I mean, it's terrifying, you know? So yeah, I've been really trying to push very hard for a much more analog life, to not have the screens in my face so much. In fact, it's ironically, I'm doing video right now, but part of what, and there's been a few times where I've said, yeah, you know, all right, maybe I'll do a video show of some kind. I should get more into video, blah, blah, blah. But then also I'm like, nah, maybe I don't. In fact, I remember Leo Laporte, like 4 or 5 years ago, said that video is for dummies, audio is for the intellectuals. Like that was the basic point that he made. And I don't want to say that that's true, but I do want to say that, like, if your content's audio, at least it gives you the option to go and do other things, and you don't have to look at a screen to experience what's happening. And I'm not knocking video. Look, documentaries, things like that are awesome. I check them out all the time. And I mean, I really do. Like, if you had any idea how many times I've rewatched entire documentary series in my life, I mean, really. So I'm not knocking it. It's just, yeah, we really, I know I've been saying it for a while, but if you sense a different air, yes, because I am reevaluating my relationship with technology, and I think everybody fucking should be reevaluating it. I mean, I get bothered, people like recording every second of what they do, and I don't know. I could go on and on about it. If people have other questions, please feel free to get them in. No, I'm not anti-tech. I just want to put tech in its place. And I want to, be able to honestly fucking think for myself, And I mean, there's some tech that's new stuff that's really great. Like e-ink, ebook readers are phenomenal. Like, I have no problem with e-ink readers, especially when they don't have web browsers built into them and so on. That's a great technology. It doesn't harm your eyes. I mean, the DPI is so high that it actually, like, your eyes can't tell the difference between it and paper and so on. I know the argument for paper books. There's great arguments. The fact that paper books, engage all of your senses and everything. That's a wonderful thing. That's great. I love paper books. Okay. And if I'm ever living in a place where I could have an entire library, like John D., then fine. I'll get into that then. But yeah, there's plenty of new technologies that are just wonderful, and I'm not against them at all. But yeah, we got to put this stuff, in its place. So anyway, like I said, feel free to get your questions in the YouTube live chat if you want, or you can join in on the Hangout. And actually, looks like my man Rob is in the Hangout right now, and looking wonderful as always. Rob, how are we doing, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing all right. What's on the dock?
It's kind of similar on to what we were just talking about. I was thinking about just recently, 2019 is going to be the year that I either, upgrade or buy a new computer. Because usually what I go through is like, I go about 4 years, and then I get to the point where I need to basically replace the motherboard and CPU and the RAM and all that. And that's basically a new computer.
Sure.
But lately I've been thinking that, like, what am I going to use it for? And this is the first time I've run into this problem, and mainly what I use a, high powered, desktop PC for is for gaming. But, right. I can't really think of any games coming out that I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
At least not in the AAA sphere, not any in the sphere that, is really pushing the high fidelity graphics.
Yeah. I recently went through kind of a similar thought process as well. And like the only game that actually, well, I'll tell you, I can think of one, and that was Mortal Kombat 11, but that was the only one that like really, it was like, but at the same time, it's not enough to warrant. I mean, that's a very expensive proposition for one, buying all of that stuff. But
especially with the trends going on in graphics cards, really kind of just, here again, another reason to just like really kind of hate on some of these, Ethereum and alt currencies, because people are just buying up the GPUs for the crypto mining and pushing. I mean, like graphics card prices is pretty much almost doubled.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that, and you and I have actually talked about this before. I think on like a Hangout, just that this is part of the appeal of like the retro consoles and so on. It's just so nice to just just play a fucking game. Just make it simple. You buy a piece of hardware and it just works. And I like, and in fact, I was thinking about this, and I don't want to necessarily get lost in like I mean, we can talk gaming. It's up to everybody else what they want me to talk about. But I remember when the NES came out, I never thought like, no, gaming doesn't have to get any better. like I mean, I'm glad the Super Nintendo came out, but I never thought to myself, well, shit, I, yeah, so one day there's going to be something better than this. One day there's going to be a Super Nintendo. That never crossed my mind. I'm like, okay, no, they'll just keep coming out with really great games. There'll be a Mega Man 23, and I'll be a happy boy. It never really crossed my mind as far as that goes. Yeah, I don't know. I guess a lot of us are starting to realize maybe the marketing and just that these industries aren't about the passion anymore and so on. And I think a lot of people are just getting tired of it. And I think, I mean, maybe there's other rationalizations coming in with it.
Right.
But
well, I mean, it definitely feels like the AAA industry.
Mm-hmm.
Is really kind of pushing a lot of short-term goals. They're really into all these microtransaction and just trying to squeeze every last cent they can out of people. Because I think they know that their sector of the business is headed for hard times. And then I'm not saying that there's going to be a complete video game crash like there was in the early 80s.
Yeah, right.
But I do think there's going to be like a AAA, gaming crash of some sort, and a lot of recent news seem to indicate like Activision is going through a lot of troubles, and a lot of these publishers are getting in a lot of hot water, and they're looking outside of kind of their traditional markets to make those monies now.
Yeah, I mean, they are unsustainable budgets. I mean, this is why I would venture Microsoft is buying up so many gaming companies now. I would see Amazon probably doing the same thing. Google would probably do the same thing because a lot of them are banking on gaming in general. And it's easy to implement a lot of that, microtransactions and everything else, like into the flow. Their software flow, where they already have app stores and everything, and it all makes it very easy to spend that, that kind of money. Yeah, I mean, the AAA gaming industry is wholly unsustainable. I think like these budgets are bigger than movies, and the amount of employees you have to have and so on. It almost has to be a loss leader. And that's sort of what they've been going for by allowing for in-app purchases and things like that, where like the base game is a loss leader. But I think eventually, a lot of these companies, it's going to be just like, like in the 90s, or I guess the early aughts, like when Electronic Arts was buying up all the gaming companies at that point, because I think they were running into the same situation in microcosm, but it was the same situation where they couldn't, you look like Origin, the gaming company Origin, they were literally making movies like with Wing Commander.
Right.
And the problem is that PC gaming was still so niche at the time, they could not afford, to spend those budgets unless like they got in a whole new base. And they're trying to, by making games into pretty much movies, like they're trying to bring a lot of new people in, and it didn't exactly work. And so EA comes knocking on the door and says, look, you can't keep this up. We'll buy you. And that's what EA did. And EA did it many times over with other companies as well. So yeah, I think the same thing is happening, but unfortunately, this is just going to be more, I mean, this could get into a huge conversation about conglomeratization of so many things. There are so few real companies out there in the world. Pretty much everybody's owned by somebody. And in the tech industry, it's really coming down to the tech giants just end up acquiring everything they really can.
Right.
And that comes with its own problems, and its own challenges.
Well, that's what I was going to say is that I think a lot of, sort of the hardcore gamers now are sort of looking and thinking that, once an independent studio gets bought out by a large publisher, well, the game's pretty much it. They're not going to make the games that they want anymore. They're going to start appealing to the Chinese markets and whatnot, and the mobile game markets. And what they loved about that company is now gone. And it's kind of hard to argue with that attitude because that's the trend. And if that doesn't happen, the other thing that happens, like you mentioned with EA, is they buy these studios up, and the games don't meet expectations, quote unquote, from the investors, and they shut the studio down. Yeah,
absolutely. I don't, that's the thing. I hate the direction all this shit is going, and I also, I'm going to admit something too. like, because these companies have really, really changed the way that they do business. And I mean, the gaming companies, you're totally accurate. Like, it's the same thing, but the tech giants, it's changed as well. They've had to completely, whether it's the introduction of smartphones or what that forced them to change. Like, I can have all the knowledge in the world about Microsoft from, 2014 back. Okay. It kind of means nothing now. Same with, you can, whatever you think Apple was, it's just not that anymore without Steve Jobs there. And just go down the list. Like, it's such new territory, and there's no, like, I can't predict so much anymore. And I hate to admit this, because it's kind of how I made my name with this show, was that I could predict what was going to happen like 6 months from now. Now, I was able to do that because I knew history and I knew how these companies operated. But now they're under completely different rules, and they have completely different goals, and they've done massive shifts in even what they're trying to achieve. And so, I mean, admittedly, that makes me feel uncomfortable with a lot of this stuff too, going forward, is that, like, it all feels like such new territory, and they're not being honest with what's going on. I feel uncomfortable going forward, because I don't know what these companies are really going to do. And then the companies you think, they end up getting acquired, and then, you have no, it's a tough time, and you just want to get away from it all, because it just all seems so fucking nuts. That's what I got. But, yeah,
it's kind of funny. We can look at people like, Steve Jobs or Steve Ballmer and think, God, I kind of miss them.
Oh, I miss Ballmer every day.
Yeah.
Man, just for the audio clips you could get from him.
Right.
When he's come running out on the stage, woo! I mean, that was fantastic. But, as crazy as he would be, you still knew Microsoft was going to be relatively sane.
Right.
And it's just not that way anymore. And there's nothing. Yeah, I don't know. I remember, like, I was really hot for. I was like, oh man, Satya Nadella, like, he is going to, he's going to make all this shit really work. But none of what, like, it seemed like the original plan at the time has really bore fruit. A lot of the direction that some of this tech could go, it's just not going to go. Like, the concept of, mass cloud storage, I mean, that's just not a thing now. Man. I don't know. It all just gives me a sense of ennui. And so it leads me kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, where I want things that don't connect to these companies, that aren't feeding them data and whatever, because in a very real way, I don't know what the fuck they're going to do. I mean, I have a, sense of right and wrong, and I can say, well, that's unethical of that company to do that. That's unethical of them to do that, blah, blah, blah. But as far as, like, where they're going to go, what their plans are with these things, I mean, it's almost anyone's guess. And that bothers me too, because if I can't, like, really guess what they're trying to do, then I'm almost led to believe they're trying to do something completely inhuman, and that's uncomfortable too. So,
well, it almost seems too like there's, like, I can imagine there's maybe like a weird feedback loop going on, wherein they seem to be basing a lot of their decisions on all of this, tracking technology that they've built in to, their products.
Yeah, all these metrics.
Yeah. Right. And then, but if the feedback that they're getting from that data is, hey, we don't want you doing what you're doing to us, then how are they basing their decisions? Because,
yeah, well, and that said, also, like, they count so much on these metrics, and maybe the only correlation you could have is, like, the television industry, where you had, you would have the rating system, the Nielsen rating system, say, 40, 50 years ago. Okay. Like, they counted on everything. Now, there were issues with that, because they would base it upon, really only the larger cities, like these certain markets, and they wouldn't know what broader America, shall we say, was actually watching. And they would miss out on the fact that, take a show like Star Trek, that Star Trek, holy shit, Star Trek was huge. But not according to the Nielsen ratings. They had no idea, that was a big thing. And so, there's that aspect of it. But the point I'm making with that is that none of these industries really think very long term. And now tech companies pretty much have their version of the Nielsen ratings. and they're not they're not willing to really experiment with some really interesting stuff and try to think very consumer facing. Now they think the consumer is telling them what what they want based upon like these little bit of metrics, based upon software that they created that isn't like necessarily the most creative thing on planet Earth. Point being, no one's thinking long term enough to where you could actually come out with a product that, maybe in 5 years it'll be the most used thing ever. But they don't care because they're just, all they're interested in is, okay, wait, what do the metrics say? How often are people using Microsoft Edge? Like
Well, not only that, but like the metrics that they're getting, they're from people who also aren't thinking long term because
right.
We're all living paycheck to paycheck.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point as well. So yeah, nobody's thinking long term, and that leads to its own, worries, because if they're just looking, okay, I mean, well, for example, Microsoft Edge. Okay, now I'm not going to talk up Microsoft. I don't need to do that, and I have no interest in doing it. But there's a chance that could have been a really great browser in about 5 years. Like maybe that could have been the browser that was just very secure, all the sandboxing, everything it was doing, and there could have been a lot of great features in it. But then all Microsoft sees is, well, shit, nobody's using it. We got to drop this now, or we got to convert it over to where it's using WebKit or Blink. And and let's scratch our plans for Edge. And I know, like, especially with Microsoft, they used to have, I don't know if they have it anymore, they used to have what they called the 9-year room, where they were thinking long term. They were like, okay, what's Windows going to be in 9 years? And they would war game this whole thing. And it's a brilliant way to get shit done, in my opinion, because if you're thinking that far ahead, you can start slowly building in a feature set that in 9 years is going to, make you, say, the dominant player in whatever industry you happen to be in.
Well, not only that, it's just a great attitude to project out into the market. Because if you remember those the AT&T You Will commercials, where they were kind of showing off all these tech and stuff, that you would have, 10 years down the line. And, even like some of that stuff was on and some of that stuff was way off. But I just remember being really enthused by those commercials.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. So, literally nobody is thinking long term. It is like, make the quick buck. And I know this conversation is taking a lot of twists and turns, but it kind of lends me to believe that what I was talking about with Douglas Rushkoff a few episodes ago, where these tech execs are just like, okay, we just got to make as much money as we fucking can right now because this is all going to fall apart. It's not just like the AAA games that are going to fall apart. Everything's going to fall apart. There's going to be an economic, there's going to be some kind of collapse, whatever shape it takes. There's going to be some kind of collapse that is just going to be so horrifying. We just need to get all the money we can right now and get out, or at least be ready to just get the fuck out. And, maybe that lends to my feeling of, not my anti-tech feeling, but my feeling of, okay, I don't want all my shit interconnected. I don't want to be dependent upon these various online services. I don't want this, because I'm picking up consciously or unconsciously what these guys are really planning. Because I mean, and maybe that speaks to that too. Like, if Microsoft's not doing a 9-year room anymore, it's because they don't think there's going to be a company in 9 years. I don't know. And that's kind of, I mean, I could go hyperbolic and say that's terrifying, but I don't exactly know what that means. And that's a problem for me too,
Yeah. It's just a terrible headspace to exist in, like on a personal level too. I mean, I remember thinking that way, and that, there's going to be, some sort of crash or, horrible thing happening that's going to, bring everybody down. And it is really just kind of a terrible place to exist in. And if that's the way that, these tech giants, people working in these tech giants, the CEOs and, are thinking, gosh, I mean, and, and the thing is when you're in that space, you don't grow, you don't develop.
Yeah.
And things, and the crash never comes. It's just, things continue to be shitty for a long time until you get out of that headspace.
Yeah, things stay the same, and not that necessarily like the market's obsession. I'm not saying we have a freed market, but the present market's obsession with growth. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a healthy thing. Like things staying the same, like having
it's the wrong kind of growth.
Yeah, well, sure, right. I mean, but if there was a more, what maybe you could call a steady state economy, kind of like Charles Eisenstein talks about, if we had that, I'm not opposed to that, but like it's got to be like the right economy. I don't want to use the word sustainable because I know people flip out when somebody says that, but it's got to be something where like it's actually like a healthier economy. Um, because yeah, if people are in that headspace, like you were saying, no matter what's actually going on, it's just going to suck, or people aren't going to grow, say personally, or things aren't going to go forward. You're not going to forward the human condition in general in any way. Or two, if a person thinks they're going to die in the next 24 hours, they're probably going to make it happen. I mean, whether or not it actually would have happened, just having that mindset can just take everything way down.
Yeah.
And yeah, again,
Well,
consciously or go ahead.
there seems to be a huge conflict of interest in the market today too, whereas all these companies seem to worry about is pleasing the investors. Well, you
Yeah.
please the investors by pleasing your customers.
Well, that's how it used to be.
Yeah, right. But now, like, I mean, what is it that these investors are demanding of these companies that are telling them, no, ignore the end user, ignore the consumer, do what we tell you? I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, none of these people live in the real world. It's like the William Gibson quote. The future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed, and a lot of these people are living, elsewhere. And I think a lot of the investors think they know. Like maybe their grandkid tells them what they're into, and so they think that that's it. But like, that's not an actual metric, right? I mean, it's important what your grandkid says, but that's like not a metric to base your investment decisions on, nor is it a
Right.
metric to base like an entire where you want a tech company to go forward, what direction you want them going in. So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's an issue too. And yeah, just overall, it's in so many ways it's so depressing. And I think that even like with crypto winter going on, I know that's got a lot of people depressed as well, because blockchain was kind of that exciting new hotness, and a lot of people have lost confidence in it, which
Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous. I mean, if anything's doing well, it's a lot of these cryptos. I mean, it might not be doing as well as 27 or 2018, but or early 2018 or late 2017, but they're doing great. I mean, by and large, if you've been in the game for a while, you're still so far fucking ahead. Don't even bother looking behind you. There's nothing there.
Right.
So
I must just be far ahead of the curve because 4 years ago I lost confidence in like the attitude of the crypto scene.
oh sure,
And
yes,
then and now I'm sort of like, well, now's the time to buy.
yeah, no,
You know,
exactly.
you know.
No, you're totally right. Yeah. No, same here. Like, I mean, because 4 years ago is when the scammers started walking
Yeah,
in.
maybe this is our chance to get those people out of the scene.
Yeah. So maybe, yeah, absolutely. This is a good market correction, perhaps, to like, just to boot all those people fucking out, and that way the
Right.
people that actually give a shit and need it, can use it. And fantastic. Then great. Then we have
Right.
then in
Because
the long. Go ahead.
there were things that I remember talking about. I used to go to Bitcoin meetups and all these
Yep.
different things, and there was things that we were excited about talking about, especially like giving basically the unbanked access to the global market,
Right.
which is a huge deal, and that still hasn't happened. What the fuck are we doing, folks?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it hasn't, and you still have a ton of people talking about it, and again, it just hasn't happened. Um, yeah, well said. I mean, and that's one area, like with say Bitcoin specifically. I think 5 years from now it's going to be phenomenal. I think it's phenomenal right now, but even 5 years, it's going to be even better. But then it speaks to the fact that when you have all these people saying, "Oh, I want to sell out," "Oh, it's so bad." I mean, then it speaks more to our point again, how we were saying earlier, that most people aren't even thinking really long term, and that's a shame because, yeah, if you can't think long term on this stuff, and again, as I've said before, play chess while everyone else is playing checkers, I mean, you're just going to be stuck, forever. You're never going to get out of your rut. You're never, I mean, mentally or whatever's going on for you financially, I mean, you're not going to do it. So but yeah, I mean, I get it. People are hungry. And I mean, like literally, like they're starving,
Yeah.
and and it's, you can't get health insurance and blah blah. Go down the list of things. It's really it's sad.
Yeah.
I'm not really like depressed. In fact, I'm actually kind of quite the opposite. But at the same time, like I'll never run out of things to talk about on Sovereign Tech, but I'm just like, so much of it is just like, oh, what fucking bullshit, you know?
Yeah,
and I could
yeah,
just come on and say, well, this is bullshit, like every week or whatever. But then that's what I get, is I get an email from somebody saying, hey, what's happened? Like it sounds like you're anti-tech or something. No, I'm not anti-tech at all. It's just the direction things are going is fucking horrible.
right. Well, coming back to what I was originally talking about with upgrading my computer,
Yeah.
it's not, like I did kind of have a moment where I was sad. It's like, hey, I really don't have like a really good reason to upgrade my computer anymore. But that doesn't say that, like I can't game anymore. There's still plenty of
Right.
things I am excited about in gaming. It's just not where I found them in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like there's something there, like in the fact that I don't know what kind of money John Romero did recently when what was it? Sigil? Was that the expansion that he came out with for Doom?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that sold very well. I think limited run games did really, really fair money with, and pretty much Romero just made like, I don't know, 16 or however many, or maybe it was more than that, whatever, however many new levels of like a 30-year-old game, and that's doing crazy money. I mean,
Yeah. Well, another one is, have you heard of Dusk?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's doing apparently really good money too.
Yeah, that's one where like it's new, but it's that
It's
old school mentality.
right,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
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 exactly. Yeah, so I mean, you could just say that. I mean, you could say it's a generational thing, kind of like Harry Dent would say, where you have, like, okay, now all the people in their 30s and 40s, they're the ones with the money, and so they're spending it on the things they were into when they were teenagers or in their 20s or something like that. But I think it's something more than that. I really do. I don't. I agree kind of with generational demographics to some degree, but sometimes I think there's something else there. And yeah, what's going on in the industry that people are more excited about 30-year-old games than, than generally whatever bullshit, that's getting schlepped, every week, or whatever PC Gamer's talking about, or whatever Xbox Magazine is talking about this month. Um, I mean, somebody should be paying attention to that and
yeah.
asking themselves, wait, what the hell? What are we doing wrong? Why are people so hot to trot about this? And
Right.
they're not, crazy about what we're doing.
Well, the
And
other
maybe,
new,
go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry. The other thing that seems to be really big amongst younger kids today is like watching other people play games seems to be just as popular as playing the games themselves, if not more popular.
Yeah, yeah. Well, oh boy,
And I wonder if that's what's kind of like they see as eating into their sales. I don't know. It's kind of a strange trend.
I wonder about this because, and it's a great thing to bring up, and it's something I've thought about in the past, like really like the whole Minecraft culture. I mean, people watch others playing Minecraft probably more than people actually watch or people actually play Minecraft, but then you still get install numbers from that. So I
Right.
don't know what exactly that means.
And now you have like Fortnite and PUBG and all those, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I really do wonder about this because I kind of wonder if it really gives you the excuse to like know something about the game without actually having to be financially invested, say, in the game. And I guess a part of me wonders if not everybody is really a gamer. And if some people, even 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they only played video games because like it was the hip thing. Like everybody was playing Mario, so we all played Mario. But then yeah, it almost, maybe it's like a water cooler sense. I don't know. You raise a great question that like I'd love to be able to spend more time thinking about it, but I get too many notifications, and so because I think there's something there, like because I don't understand why that is. Like why do
Yeah.
people? I mean, maybe it's like sports. I don't know. What exactly the draw is there, but I cannot imagine. And in fact, people have made similar comments about sports, right? Like, I'm trying to remember. I think it was a book by like Eric Sloan, which was about the weather of all ironies. Eric Sloan is this guy, like 80, I don't know, 70, 80 years ago, whatever. He wrote a ton of books about like, how to do stuff with old tools and everything. And he would talk about how you can read the weather just by looking at it without listening to the, the meteorologist or something. Anyway, I think in one of his books, he was like talking about football, and it was a more recent one. And he was saying that back in the days is, no man, I mean, I'm not saying I agree with him on this, but his point was no man would actually like sit down and watch football on Sunday. He'd be outside playing it, like what the hell's wrong with this guy? He should be playing football, not just sitting there watching it. And I don't know if there's something similar in that with gaming. I'm not sure.
I was actually thinking along the same lines of that. I mean, there is a certain to get really, to the level that some of these people are playing at that other people are watching. I mean, it's a significant time investment to develop skill in a game like that. Yeah, and not everybody has that time. So it's kind of like you said, it's like with sports, obviously I think a lot of people that watch sports who probably were athletes in their high school day, but now, they have to work and they weren't good enough to be a professional athlete. So they watch other people, and I wonder if it is the same thing with gaming.
Yeah. There's some in that, what you were saying, there's something there because when you look at like Angry Video Game Nerd and, they have James and Mike Mondays where they play some classic game or something. And like, you see the amount of views that they get on those videos it's like insane, and I think you're hitting it. And those are classic games, which kind of leads to the point that it's people who are, it's that nostalgia play.
Or the other thing that's popular with classic games is like speed runs. And obviously that takes a huge time investment in just one game to get so good that you're running through the whole game in like, less than an hour.
Sure. Yeah, just read from the YouTube chat here. It says, it's not a 30-year-old game, but I just bought a Switch and Breath of the Wild, partially due to my nostalgia for the N64 Zelda games. Also, to be fair, it is a great game. Well, lifestyle, really, LOL. Yeah.
Sure. That's one thing I'd bring up is I think if any company is going to be okay through whatever's coming in the triple game industry, it's probably going to be Nintendo.
Yeah, but absolutely. And I think a lot of that has to do with the synergy between hardware and software that they have.
Right.
And there's the nostalgia play, I mean, they're just right place, right time, and they can hold on to that and hold on to an audience and, get you to, I want to play the latest Zelda game, and away you go. And as far, I played it a little bit, like I've demoed it. But certainly Breath of the Wild is obviously an amazing game. And it can be a lifestyle too. That's for sure. Not that I'm one to speak against games becoming lifestyles. I've been living Star Wars TIE Fighter, really since 1994, and I've never stopped living it.
So me both.
Yeah. But, yeah. So, I mean, it's a big conversation. It's not one that you can resolve, I think, or even necessarily get to any kind of conclusion with inside of an hour. I mean, it's because we're talking decades worth of developments.
Yeah.
And also, just like we were saying, how Nintendo has that great relationship between hardware and software. I mean, the gaming industry and even beyond the gaming industry. I mean, there's so many data points. The relationships between, the OEMs, the hardware manufacturers, the games that get made, the operating system that's powering it underneath, and so on. I mean, like, this is such a big thing. And I think it's impossible for like one person or even two to completely understand it. I mean, that's the nature of the growth of knowledge that we've been dealing with for at least the past 200 years, if not before.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think it's just kind of like I'm in a state now where, like you said, a lot of these business models, we know they're not sustainable, and I'm just kind of waiting to see how this plays out.
Yeah. Well said. Same here. I want to see how all this ends up playing out. And something else recently, like just like on an operating system side. I'm just sick of every day the fucking news coming out about whatever's going on with Windows 10 or whatever. I've converted most of my machines over to, I'm running either Ubuntu or something along those lines now. And really it's just because it's not making crazy news, and it just does what it does, and it goes forward. And there's nothing really, I mean, what do people, literally, it's so funny. And when, in the Microsoft world, or even in the Apple world and so on, but maybe more so with Windows. It's this exploit. Oh, this broke. This update isn't working or something. I mean, when you go to Linux, people are just complaining about, well, fuck, I think that new wallpaper is terrible. And it's like, oh, how refreshing. That's the biggest problem you have.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
That's an interesting point. I think the personally for me, the biggest disappointment over like the last 5 or 10 years has been Valve's promise to bring gaming to Linux, and them not delivering.
Yeah. Oh man, yes, yeah, because to get, we're talking about like how complex this whole conversation and like everything we're bringing up is. Yeah, if you could just cut out the operating system side of it, and say, no, don't worry about that. We got that covered. You just play your games.
Yeah.
I mean, which granted is the console argument, but yeah, that would have been great, and they completely dropped the ball.
And well, not only did they drop the ball, is that apparently the whole reason they did that was basically they were playing chicken with Microsoft, and they wanted Microsoft to quit impinging on the gaming industry, and the other thing is for them to get out of the graphics hardware industry.
Yeah, which, I mean, if that was the game of chicken, Steam won because
they won, but then we lost because we didn't get gaming on Linux. We didn't get Steam boxes. We didn't get Steam OS. All that shit fell apart.
Yeah. No, that's a great point to bring up. I mean, that's the thing is that's the other part of it too, is that a lot of these ideas, and again, a lot of it comes down to those metrics and so many other things that they seem to, that they can collect for so quickly, but then they don't look at the broader, longer picture. Well, we don't get to try this stuff out because they think that they found out. I mean, because that's the thing is that, like, kind of, I think the point you're making is that SteamOS long term is the real answer, and it needs to be.
Right.
As to where they got the, shall we say, instant gratification. I don't like to use that term, but they got the instant gratification that, Windows backed off. And so then, they dropped this idea that really 10 years from now needs to be. And because again, you can't, I mean, just the nature of the way this business is being done, you cannot count on another company. You can't count on Microsoft to not change their mind tomorrow.
It doesn't necessarily have to be SteamOS, because somebody else can do it. Somebody else, please do it.
Yeah, GOG, jump on it.
Like, yeah, right.
I mean, they obviously have incredibly talented developers there. I mean, make that happen. They have supported Linux more so in the past 4 years. I'd love if they did it. And yeah, but I mean, fucking A, because that gets into such a big conversation too. I mean, the other thing you could do is have people start supporting. Oh hell, what's the name? Not Redux. That's the one that's written in Rust. React OS, where, I mean, yeah, it's Russian, sure, but they're just trying to like reverse engineer, Win32 binaries and the DLL system, and like, great, that way you could have an open source version of Windows. Like, that would really solve shit, And for whatever reason, no one wants to support that whole. I mean, if I was Steam, I'd be jumping on that, because then there's no need to convert things over. And I know Steam did do recently, didn't they make it where you can play like a bunch of Windows games on Linux now? And it's like they didn't do Wine, but they did some kind of emulation.
Yeah, I don't know. I must have missed that. I don't follow Steam and Valve as closely as I used to, just because, like I said, it's just been, one disappointment after another.
Same. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't. Oh man, there's a part of me, I want to keep going with this because there's a part of me that does want to get into like talking about steady state economies and so on. Because I mean, and that's not necessarily something new for me. I've never understood the obsession with growth. I mean, well, now I think I understand it a little more, but I've never understood this obsession with, we just have to get more users no matter what, even if we don't turn a buck, or if in 10 years the company tanks, we gotta, we just have to keep getting more users. Like that whole attitude. There's really, really indescribable attitudes going on in the tech industry that affects gaming, operating systems, the whole thing. So anyway.
Well, I would love to hear an episode about that. So maybe.
Yeah, I'll get to it at some point. Of course, this week's Sovryn Tech will be coming out. It'll be out tonight. And I'm going to, just as a preview for those that are listening live, I'm going to talk about Jeff Bezos for a little while, and and I know that people don't think that should matter, but I think it actually kind of matters. His whole divorce and all that bullshit.
I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I have thoughts. So anyway, people can hear all of that later. But anyway, we can wrap this up now. It has been 1 hour. I can't believe that hour just flew by. But time flies when you're having fun, I suppose. But yeah, a big conversation to have, certainly. And I appreciate you coming on, Rob, as always.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. But just a big conversation really to have is that, like the shit has gotten completely out of control, and not that everybody could possibly understand how it all works. Of course they can't. But I don't know, people just like are letting, it just feels like people are letting these tech giants run roughshod, and they just don't care. It's like, well, whatever, I can watch Netflix, so everything's fine. And that bothers me. So anyway, disconnect where you can, folks. That's my message for for this live January 2019 Hangout Q&A. And I do want to also say, it got some really major changes coming up in the next month that are planned. But I guarantee you they're all great and they're all wonderful and they're only good for the show. And I hope when it's good for the show, you realize it's good for you. So I can't wait for to talk more about that as it comes. But that'll wrap it up for your January 2019 live Hangout Q&A. I will see all of you on the other side.